Christ in me arise, and dispel all the darkness. Christ in me arise, with your power and your strength. Christ in me pour out your blessing and healing. Christ in me arise, and I shall rise with you. My mother loved clever little sayings, refrigerator magnets. She loved old adages. And one of her favorite ones was this: if you're going to talk the talk, Aiden, you got to walk the walk. If you talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. We've heard that, right? That can go over our heads really easily, right? But if we take it seriously, that's what all these readings are about today. If we want to be people of conviction, faith, comfort, love, justice, we can think about these things, but we have to allow these things to inform us and to form us. Because if we do, then we walk the walk, right? We walk the walk. There's lots of people that talk, right? Talk, either in an extroverted way or in an introverted way in the mind. But the question is, does it land? Does it land? Do the important things that we think and believe land in the expression of our lives? That's what today's readings are all about today. That's what discipleship is all about today. In our gospel reading today, it's really interesting. Last week we had beautiful preaching from Father Emmanuel and a beautiful witness by Morgan, right? Wouldn't you agree? It was amazing. It was absolutely, positively amazing. Peter has realized something important. He has received this inspiration from the Spirit, and he gets it right. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Well, now we go to the next part of that. Have you ever had the experience in your life of having a friend, and you're kind of testing that relationship a little bit, but you say, well, they've been good. They showed up, so I'm ready to share something else about my life, deep and profound. We're a little nervous, but then we share it. That is a step in trust. That was what was happening in today's gospel. Jesus recognizes the faith of Peter and his disciples, and so he's ready to share something deeper about his life, his mission. So he says, well, I've taught and I've healed and I've done all these wonderful things. But now I have to go to Jerusalem, suffer, die, be killed, and on the third day I'm going to rise. Peter freaks out. Isn't this a relatable experience? Peter's human. He cares about his friend, and he's trying to protect him. Is that ever us? If our friends tell us intense things, don't we try to protect them because we care? Isn't that what we do? That's a very human experience. We can relate to that. And then Jesus says very, very strongly, get behind me, Satan. But we also have to listen to two things. When he says, get behind me, Satan, well, what does Satan mean? The one who scatters, the one who confuses. That's what Satan does. Get behind me, the one who scatters and confuses. Because if we are scattered and confused, we can't do our mission, right? We do everything else but our mission. But then the words that follow are also important. You are thinking as human beings do, not as God. Aren't we human beings? Are you human being? Wow, 30 people said yes. Are you human beings? Okay, I hope so. I don't think artificial intelligence is in the church. At least the technology is getting very good if some of you are androids. We think as human beings, that's who we are. But people of God, as human beings, we have limits. Even the greatest human beings in history. that have come up with the greatest theories in history, that have advanced us in history and technology and all these wonderful ways, still have limits. And when we have limits, we have to reach to something greater than ourselves for inspiration and guidance to keep us going. And that's why he says, you're thinking as human beings do, not as God does. And by virtue of our baptism, we hear this to death sometimes. You are priest, prophet, and king. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? If you're a priest, it means what do? You pray to God and you offer sacrifices to God. That's all it means. I'm just not doing that. You're also called by virtue of your baptism to pray and to offer sacrifices to God, the sacrifice of your life to God. King. What do kings do? They rule. You have to orientate yourself to God and then help to orient other people to God. That's what kingship means. And prophet means what, people of God? We have to take the word of God and let it marinate inside of us. We got to twist it and turn it and question it and doubt it so that it can mature in us, because if it does, it can really inform our life in a beautiful way so that when we speak, people see God. That's what it means to be priest, prophet, and king. And that's why he says, you're thinking as human beings do, not as God does. Christ had to die and rise, right? Because that's how the whole of humanity at the very roots got healed. There are certain things in our life that we have to do sometimes too that are super important, right? That sometimes our friends don't understand. But isn't that the test of true love? True love doesn't always understand what our husbands and wives and girlfriends and boyfriends and good friends are doing, right? They don't always understand that. But if we know people and we know that they are oriented about right things, what do? We don't get in the way of that. We walk that journey. And that's all Jesus is saying. He says, get behind me, right? Because you are losing your mind and you're losing your focus. And when we lose our focus, we have to get behind and follow the focus and follow things. That's all it means. He's not alienating Peter. He's helping Peter to find reorientation again. And isn't that what we need in our lives sometimes when we go off track? If you sit around beating yourself up forever for falling down, well, get used to it. People have. That's called being human. But the point is learning from our mistakes. When you and I learn from our mistakes, then even a mistake becomes something that God can use. We have to learn from our mistakes. Get behind me, Satan. Follow me. Don't follow yourself. Follow me. Because I will help you to find peace, healing, and comfort. So we put a little period there. Now we're going to go to the first reading. Then I'm going to let you go. Great first reading, Aiden. Thank you for reading it. You know, Jeremiah the prophet. Great story. Young prophet, called, scholars say, probably around 15 or 16. Could you imagine being called to be a prophet around 15 or 16? And not only that, he was called to be a prophet in a time that was very tumultuous. There was a Jewish king that was trying to help the covenant land and be formed among the people, but people were falling left and right away from God's orientation. They just were. Don't we do that sometimes in life? It's very easy to say, oh, look what that person's doing. But sometimes we have to stop and say, what am I doing? Right? What am I doing? It happens. But people were falling left and right in major ways. And so God calls Jeremiah not to be a successful prophet like Jonah. Jonah preached and everything turned around. Jeremiah was called to deliver this message. And tell me if you think this is attractive. Jeremiah was called to deliver the message that you have displeased God greatly. God is going to punish you by letting the Babylonians take you into captivity, and you have to deal with that and remain faithful. That was Jeremiah's whole message. And people, his own people, hated him for that. They hated him for that. Have you ever delivered a message that you had to deliver? You know, and people hate you for that message. And you think, hey, I'm just following the company policy. Or, hey, I'm just, that happens. That happens in life. That was Jeremiah's whole life. He struggled with that, but he remained faithful. And today's reading, we hear his outer thoughts. Oh Lord, you have duped me. But the beautiful thing about it is not only have you duped me, but I've let myself be duped. Isn't that interesting about faith in God sometimes? We're all sitting here, and sometimes God dupes us, doesn't it? Right? Choir, does God dupe us sometimes? Of course, we think so, if we're looking at the short view. God never dupes us in terms of the long view, but definitely in the short view. God does that. But I love this part. Then he says, I wish I could get rid of this. But when you fall in love with a person or a principle or a truth in your life, how in the world do you get rid of that? Can you get rid of that? Something that you fall in love with truly, deeply, it fulfills you? Can you get rid of that, people of God? 10 people. Can you get rid of that, people of God? 25 people. Can you get rid of that, people of God? Okay, almost the whole church. All right, you can't get rid of that. Because that's the why. And that love and that why keeps us going in hard, difficult times when we feel duped and twisted up. That why keeps us going, and it keeps us grounded, and it keeps us sober. Because some people, they complain about everything when they're in a hard time, and other people absolutely ignore it. As human beings, we do both of those things. But God is a God that stays with us, that lifts us, that loves us. And Jeremiah continued his journey. And yes, he got killed. But his impact helped the people stay faithful and true. So that's a message for us, people of God. If we truly want to be lovers of God, God is interested in our whole self, our whole mind, and learning how to use it, our whole heart, learning how to use it, our whole soul, learning how to use it, and all of our strength, learning how to use it. But God's also interested in us and our neighbor. That's what we're signing up for being a Christian, for being a Catholic, for being a disciple. Does anybody want to leave the church now? That's why we gather Sunday after Sunday. That's why you and I pray day after day, even when we don't want to pray, for strength, to keep seeing the why, to keep feeling the hand guiding us in difficult times, in times when we feel so low, and we all feel that way sometimes. God is interested in our lives and never lets go. So the homework is let God in. Let Christ in to a part of yourself where you don't even go. Let Christ in. My heart is thirsting, thirsting for you, O Lord my God. My heart is thirsting together. My heart is thirsting, thirsting for you, O Lord my God. My heart is thirsting. Amen.